time in all of our lives, may have already happened to you, where we start using phrases back in the day, or when I was a kid. Hands up here right now if you've started using them phrases. Thought so. For those of you that haven't, you will. I remember my parents and grandparents saying these things to me, hearing stories of the good old days. As a petulant child, I'd just roll my eyes and hope the conversation ended really quite quickly. It seemed a bit prehistoric to me. Didn't interest me. I couldn't understand a time when we lived without a television. Or needing a wee in the middle of the night meant taking a trip down the garden path. No, didn't understand it. Didn't interest me. The one thing I did do was vow to never start my sentences with, when I was a kid, or back in the day. I didn't do very well with that one. I'm 44 years old now, so my back in the day stories are not as far back as my grandparents or my parents, obviously. But my kids roll their eyes at me. They find it all a bit alien. I mean, they can't understand a time without mobile phones. They want the stories to be over just as quick as I wanted them to be over. How many of you here know your neighbours? Know their names? Know all their names? Know their interests, their hobbies, their children's names? Believe it or not, back in the day, everybody knew their neighbours. They knew everybody in their street. They knew their names. They knew their interests. They knew when it was little Johnny's birthday, or if Aunt Gladys was ill. They all cared about each other. Back in the day, there was a real sense of unity, togetherness, community, forged amongst people like us in areas like ours. Wouldn't it be nice to go back to a time where you felt confident to knock on that neighbour's door and ask for a bowl of sugar, or a jug of milk, or just a chat because you're feeling a bit lonely? Wouldn't it be nice to knock on your neighbour's door and invite them for a meal? You've got an empty seat, they're on their own. Come and sit with us. You see, food has that great ability to bring people together, whether you're sitting around a dinner table of an evening, eating together, in a back garden having a barbecue, because we don't have barbecues on our own, do we? Or in a kitchen preparing food, we can do that together. Or knocking on that neighbour's door and asking them to come round and share a meal with you. It's surprising what bonding can be done through food. Last night for tea, we had a stir fry. Really quite plain. The reason we had that stir fry was because in my vegetable rack was some really, really pathetic looking veg. There was carrots that were really shriveled and bent over, and a couple of heads of broccoli and some cabbage and some onions and stuff that had seen better days, but I refused to put it in the bin. I sliced it, I diced it, I seasoned it, chucked it in a wok. I had a bit of meat left over from another meal, and it was fantastic. What made it taste better was the fact that all that food, essentially in most people's homes, would have gone in the bin. We had no food waste in our veg rack this week, and I'm really proud of that. We cooked it, we used it, we ate it, and we came together while we ate it. How much do you throw away each week? That veg I've just spoke about, those shriveled carrots, that little bit of broccoli that you think, well, that won't feed us all, so that can go. Those iron potatoes, surely they're no good because they've got sprouty things on them. What about those annoying best before dates? Will this slice of bread that has today's best before date on it really make me ill if I eat it tomorrow? I'll let you decide that one. Today we're talking back to the future and what that means to us. Perhaps we should all go back in time. To a time where there was no waste. There were no dates on foods. We have a nose for a reason, you know. And there was no great big supermarkets that brought in hundreds of tons of food every single week. Now all wrapped in plastic wrappers. Back in the day, there it is again, there was a butcher, a greengrocer. You maybe had a milkman and a coalman. There was a few other shops dotted down the high street, but you know, they were really intimate shops. The shopkeepers knew their customers, their names, their children's names, their orders. The shopkeepers knew if Aunt Gladys hadn't been in for a week or so, and would often send out an SOS to see if she was okay. Again, it was that sense of community, that togetherness, where people looked out for each other. Back in the day, no food was wasted, and plenty was shared. Mum would cook up that evening meal of anything she got in the fridge or the pantry. You'd sit down, and you ate it. There was no waste. There was no fussy eaters. Everything was eaten. Because essentially, if you didn't eat everything that was there in front of you, you went to bed hungry. Very, very hungry. Not that I condone sending children to bed hungry, but it didn't do me any harm. When I talk about these times, don't think I've got rose-tinted spectacles on. Times were really, really hard back in the day. There were no luxuries. No expensive cars or foreign holidays. No designer clothes or fancy toys for the kids. If you were the youngest child of the family, usually you had 2, 3, 4 times passed down things. Like 4 times passed down trainers or jumper or bike. Let's not even think about bath night. Back in the day, the tin bath came in, it went in front of the fire, and Dad got in it first, and Dad was usually the dirtiest. And then your siblings got in before you were last. That can't have been nice. But that's what they did back in the day. They didn't complain. When you speak to people now about back in the day, or when I were a kid, they look back on as happy times, with a fondness in their hearts. And what people do say is they have a deep-seated respect for the grown-ups that surrounded them, that really did bust a gut to put food on a table. How have we become this throwaway society? WRAP, the Waste and Resource Action Programme, estimates that 70% of food waste comes from households like ours. That's 6.7 million tonnes of food. I can't picture that. I don't know if you can. It's a lot of food. Today, I'm talking about food, but it's not just food. Back in the day, if I had a hole in something, my mum sewed it. If the hole was too big, she stuck a whopping great big patch on it. Didn't get thrown away, it got sewed. If something bigger was broken, Dad had a go at mending it. He'd usually take it apart into a million pieces, have a tinker, put it back together again, usually with a few pieces left over, in the hope that it worked. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. But my point is, he had a go before it ended up in the bin. Because back in the day, money was too precious to throw away. You didn't throw these things away. That lovely lady there is my nan. She's 82 years young. She was 82 on Sunday. I go and see my nan every Monday, have done for years. I do little jobs for her. I clean the windows and I change the bedding and sort of paperwork out. But what I do is I sit there and I chat. We chat. We chat about the good old days. And now I love them stories. And I chew her ear off listening to them stories. One thing she did tell me was, back in the day when she was younger, how she shopped. Now, when she was younger, they got paid on a Friday. Cash in a little brown envelope. Some of you here may remember that brown envelope on a Friday. They'd take it home, they'd have a pile for mortgage and rent, and a pile of money for bills, and then a pile for food. Now, back in the day, fridges weren't all that common. It wasn't until about the 1970s, according to Good Housekeeping, that fridges became more popular. So my nan had to shop a little bit differently than you and I would shop. She got that cash envelope on a Friday and went shopping for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. She went shopping on a Monday for Monday, Tuesday, but then on a Wednesday, something a little bit different happened. My nan and her sister, my Auntie Laura, would pool their resources. They would go to my nan's dining table and empty their purses on there. There wasn't much in them, but they pooled it. They looked in both of their cupboards to see what food they got left. Again, there wasn't much. So what they did was they looked what they got, they looked what money they had, they went off down to the shops and bought enough food that would see them and their families through till payday again on Friday. They shared everything. They looked out for each other. Bit alien, that, isn't it? This isn't something that we do today. Let's think about it for a second. Back in the day, there was no waste. Most people had a roof over their head. Another strange phenomenon. Very little obesity, very few food allergies. Why is that? Who knows? How many of you here shop impulsively? Walk into a big supermarket with your trolley and just pile it high. Stick whatever you want in there. 3 or 4 days later, you look at your cupboards and you think, I have no more meals left. I have stuff, but I don't have meals. I need to go shopping again. Yep, I used to do that all the time. All the time. Walk into a supermarket, fill my shopping trolley full, £60 or £70 later. You could actually fill a shopping trolley for £60 or £70 back in the day. Get home, and 3 or 4 days later need to go shopping again because there was no food left. I hadn't thought about it. All that changed when I became a single parent. Me and my children needed to find a different way to live. I was on one income now and had to make that money last. So I started meal planning. I started writing a list. I would find ways to make one meal into 2 or 3 meals. Sausages were my best friend. We'd have sausage casserole one night, and maybe sausage and mash the next night, and maybe sausage, chips and egg the next night, because a big bag of sausages was cheaper than a few sausages. I walked into that supermarket armed with a list. My children knew every meal they were going to have for the whole week, because that's how I had to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe we should all do that. Another thing that I did was I bought a dining table. And I made me and my children sit around that dining table every single night. That was that one meal where we came together, we ate together, we laughed together, we chatted together. Food did that. Food brought us together. Now, it's not rocket science. Very few people plan to fail. They just fail to plan a little bit. With a bit of time and effort, everyone can reduce their food waste, their food bill, and come together a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with a cheeky takeaway. Everyone likes cheeky takeaway, don't they? But when fridges and freezers are full of plastic tubs and boxes that go in a microwave for just a few minutes, I'm here today to try and convince you there is a better way, a cheaper way, a way where we don't waste anything. Let's go back in time and adopt their attitudes, where food and money was a precious commodity. Nothing was thrown away. Let's adopt that. Let's get cooking. How about that? Let's dust off them pots and pans and get in that kitchen. Let's bring the youngsters into the kitchen. I'm talking youngsters. Let's get them in the kitchen. Let's get them educated around food. Let's get them as passionate about food waste and saving money as what I am. Let's teach the kids how to cook. Essentially, all food has cost money. Every morsel of food that's in your cupboards has cost you money. So why is it okay to throw it in the bin? You wouldn't stand over a grid and post your hard-earned cash down that grid. That's what the bin is. That's what you're doing. You're throwing money away because it's become demonetised slightly. Don't just see them as potatoes or apples or oranges or bananas. See them as 10p pieces, 50p pieces in some cases. It all adds up. Food has far more value in a belly than a bin. Write that list. Sit down with the whole family. Bring them in. Ask the kids what they want for tea in the week. Get them to plan it. Turn one meal into 2 or 3 like I used to. Make sausages your best friend. Bring everyone together. If you've got some fruit in that fruit bowl, eat it. Don't throw it away. Just because the apple's starting to shrivel, don't mean there's anything wrong with it. Chop it up, eat it. But if it really does offend you, see if Mr. and Mrs. Smith next door want them apples. Maybe they'll turn them into the apple pie and send a slice back to you. Don't throw it away, because it's cost you money. In the times that we currently live, we should all take a leaf out of the older generation's book. Don't roll your eyes when they start a conversation with, back in the day, when I were a kid. Don't do what I did. My mum and nan will be no different to any of your mums and nans. Sit down and have that conversation. Ask the questions. Learn. But enjoy it. Enjoy hearing their stories. Before I finish, I invite you all to set yourself a challenge. Can you go a whole week without throwing any food away? Making the bin redundant. Can you do that? Can you go a whole month with writing a list, walking into that supermarket and only buying what's on that list? Planning your meals, throwing nothing away. Once you've adopted your new ways, your new shopping habits, your list writing, saving money, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. But remember, every morsel of food that you put in that bin has cost you money. And surely, food belongs in bellies, not bins. Thank you.